morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Chapter 4. We're talking about cells. We just got done talking about prokaryotic cells, and now we're talking about eukaryotic cells. Remember, all cells have some common things. The common things that all cells have is a cell membrane, DNA, ribosomes, and that DNA is followed the same way. You read the code the same way, whether it's in a bacterium or in a rhinoceros. It's all read the same way. Inside of all cells, we have what's called cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is made of a couple of different things. Cytoplasm is all of the stuff inside the cell. It's mostly cytosol. It's mostly that goop that we talked about. It has a rough consistency of jelly. It's 96% water, but it's 4% dissolved stuff. In that cytosol, and remember, imagine a cell is a water balloon. And inside that water balloon, it's filled essentially with jelly. And then inside that jelly, there are these structures called organelles. And as we said before, organelle means little organ. An organelle has a particular job that it does for the cell. The nucleus holds the DNA. The mitochondria makes all the energy for the cell. The chloroplast photosynthesizes for plant cells. The rough ER makes proteins. Ribosomes make proteins. The rough ER modifies the protein. Each of these different organelles have specific jobs that they do that nothing else does. So inside of cells, we've got goop, we've got organelles, and then we got these things called inclusions. And inclusions are, they have functions, but not jobs. As in, you can have mineral crystals inside. It depends on the cell. Some cells have them, most cells don't. For example, birds, specifically like geese and ducks. Geese and ducks like fly south for the winter, right? How does the duck know what direction south is? The way they know what direction south is high up in their nose. They've got some cells that have crystals in them of what's called magnetite. What does that sound like? Sounds like magnets. What do you use to tell direction? You use a compass. How does the compass tell you which direction is north? It's got a magnetic needle. Basically, geese and ducks and other migratory birds have cells inside their nose, basically where their beak touches their head, that are miniature compasses, crystals inside their cells. Some cells have pigment granules in them. The color your skin is depends on the color of pigment your skin makes. When we're exposed to the sun, when we're out working in the summertime, our skin gets darker, regardless of what color we start off. Light, medium, dark. The more time we spend in the sun, we get darker. All right? That's because the cells in your skin make more pigment. Those pigment granules accumulate inside your cell, and they have a job. We'll talk about that job is another day. And last would be like a sugar body. A sugar body is basically like a little pantry for cells, a place for it to hold food. Cells have to eat, and this is called metabolism. Metabolism is all of the chemical reactions that take place inside of a cell. And there are two basic chemical reactions. All reactions do one of two things. They either make something or they break something. And cellular metabolism is all of them together. All of the reactions that it takes to make you is cellular metabolism. And this is all accomplished by those organelles. As we said, ribosomes make proteins. Rough ER assembles or modifies proteins. We said that the mitochondria makes energy. It doesn't make energy, it harvests energy from the food that you eat. And it makes energy molecules for your other bits and pieces of your cell to spend, to use. Cellular metabolism. Each different organelle has a set of reactions that it does that no other organelle does. And we call all of these reactions together metabolism. Animal cells have some special organelles in them that we don't find in plant cells. Animal cells have what are called lysosomes. We'll talk about those when we get there. Plant cells don't have them. Why not? We'll talk about it when we get there. And the other organelle that we find in animal cells but not in plant cells are called centrioles. The job of the centriole is it takes place in mitosis, and pretty much only in mitosis. And we'll talk about centrioles and what they do when we talk about mitosis. Another difference between plant and animal cells is that animal sperm cells have a flagella on them, and most plant cells don't. And to be fair, the only plants that have a flagellated sperm, as in it's got a tail on it, are mosses. And aside from that, I don't think there's any, maybe ferns, but I don't think there's any plants besides mosses that have a flagellated sperm. It's kind of a big deal. Here we see an animal cell. I hope that you recognize what a cell looks like. Here is that nucleus. You probably can't see it very well in this picture, but the nucleus has an envelope. It has a wrapper around it. And these little pimples that we see on the nucleus aren't pimples. They're actually holes that allow things to go into and come out of the nucleus. We'll see in a few minutes that the nucleus, the nuclear envelope, is continuous with the rough ER. This blue stuff, this blue folded stuff, is called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Do you see how little front section of the nuclear envelope is bleeding into and forms this rough ER? Do you notice that? That's what continuous means. Continuous means it's hard to tell where the one stops and the other one starts. When you're standing in your living room, you're clearly standing on living room carpet. And when you're standing in the hallway, you're clearly standing on hallway carpet. Is there a clear line that separates living room carpet from hallway carpet? Or does it just kind of flow? Does it just kind of flow from the living room into the hallway? That's what continuous means. It's kind of hard to tell where it stops being the one and starts being the other. The nuclear envelope is continuous with the rough ER. And we see the other organelles in here, like the mitochondria, like the Golgi, like the smooth ER, the rough ER, and then ribosomes. I don't know if you can see them very well in the picture, but there's tiny little ribosomes. And even organelles like a lysosome. We see a lysosome right here, and we'll talk about lysosomes in a little while. Okay? And then here's that centriole. See these two little Lego piece looking things? These are the centrioles right here, and their whole job is to organize mitosis, and they don't do much aside from that. Plant cells. Animal cells have lysosomes. Animal cells don't have cell walls. Animal cells have flagellated sperm, if we're talking about specifically sperm cells. And animal cells have lysosomes. Plants. What do plants have that we don't? Well, the first thing is they've got that cell wall. They have a rigid cell wall that goes around them and wraps them up. So if my animal cell is a water balloon full of jelly, take that water balloon and put it inside of a wooden box and then close the lid. That's what a plant cell is like. Because I still have my cell membrane. I still have the fabric of the balloon, but it's inside of a rigid container. And that rigid container is called the cell wall, and it's made of this stuff called cellulose. Cellulose, you may have heard of this before. What kind of a molecule is it? What does it end in? What is the suffix? The suffix is OSE. What kinds of molecules have names that end in ose? Like sucrose, like fructose, like glucose. What are those? Those are sugars. Cellulose is a sugar. A special sugar that we can't digest. And actually no animal can. No animal is capable of digesting wood. What about termites? Termites eat wood. They do. But the termite itself cannot digest the wood. Termites have bacteria in their guts that digest the wood for them. Cellulose. Other things that we find inside plant cells that we don't find inside animal cells are chloroplasts. Remember, a chloroplast is a special organelle specifically for photosynthesis. That is its only job, is photosynthesis. And last is this structure called a central vacuole. Let me show you a picture. So here is my stereotypical plant cell. Here's that cell membrane. Notice how it says plasma membrane. It means the same thing. It's just easier to say cell membrane. So a plasma membrane and cell membrane, it means the same thing. Here's the cell membrane, and we said, imagine that a plant cell is just my water balloon inside of a wooden box. Here's my wooden box. The wooden box is the cell wall that goes around the plant cell. We still have a nucleus, we still have rough and smooth ER, we still have a Golgi, we still have mitochondria. A couple additional things that we have in a plant cell is we have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are for photosynthesis. And then the last thing that we have is a structure right here called a central vacuole. The central vacuole kind of has a complicated job. The central vacuole, its primary purpose is to hold water. When we talk about it in chapter 7, we'll talk about photosynthesis. I hope you know that plants need lots of water. The reason why they need lots of water is because it takes lots of water to run photosynthesis. We'll talk about why later. But because it takes lots of water to run photosynthesis, plant cells have a special organelle for holding water. And this special organelle is called the central vacuole. That's its primary purpose, is to hold water, but it's not its only purpose. Because plant cells don't have a lysosome, lysosomes for breaking down trash, because plant cells don't have a lysosome, they kind of don't have a way of dealing with trash very well. And so what they do is they just chuck it in the central vacuole. If they have something they don't know what to do with, they can't break down or they can't do anything with it, they just chuck it in the central vacuole. So the central vacuole is one part well and one part trash can. I mean, I don't encourage you to throw trash down your well, but plants do.